Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the local search clinic for this evening, where I am going to be speaking with the amazing, here she is, Emily Brady, and we're going to be talking about location pages. So there are a few things that I need to tell you before we start, not Emily, everybody else. First of all, welcome and thank you for coming. It is nice to see so many people signed up, so many people online right now with us. So the idea today is, or this evening, or wherever you are in the world, is we get to pick Emily's brain and ask all of our questions about location pages, which is fantastic. What an opportunity. I need to tell you that this session is being recorded and that it will be available tomorrow on the same URL on the BrightLocal website and on the YouTube channel as well. So that's what's going to happen. So the idea today is for you to give us your questions, and the place to leave those is in the Ask a Question box. Have a little look at the other questions that are in there first, just to make sure that you're not doubling up. We've got 33 in there at the moment. Please upvote your favorite ones so we can get those to the top, because I am going to run through them probably in order of upvote. So another thing just to remember is we are covering location pages. So there's a lot of stuff there about sort of content for local SEO. So obviously those are the types of questions that we're going to answer. So if you've written one that's about something else, I might skip over it just because we've got so many questions. Also, don't put them in the chat, put them straight in the questions, because that's where we will see them and where we will get to them. So without further ado, I am going to ask Emily to introduce herself, and then we will crack straight on.
Fantastic. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here talking about one of my favorite topics. But yeah, my name is Emily Brady. I have been doing SEO for local businesses, both SMB, a lot of SMB emphasis, but also enterprise, multi-location for about 10 years. I am the senior SEO manager at Podium. So I head up SEO there in-house actually, but still a really strong emphasis on helping local businesses win. So anything related to local SEO is very close to my heart. And I specifically like talking about on-site local SEO. I started out as a content writer, so location pages, on-site, all of that good stuff just makes me really happy, and I'm really thrilled to talk about it today. I feel like I should share a fun fact about me, but when I'm not doing SEO, I guess. But yeah, when I'm not working, I moved to New York last year, so half of my personality now is just finding new restaurants to eat at. So in my spare time, I like exploring the city, and I'm a bit of a foodie that way.
Yum. That's my dream. New York, eating food. Also, Emily's got a very cute cat that we said hello to earlier. Hello, everyone that's joining us in the chat. Hello, Elizabeth. Hello, Jason. Hello, other people. Hello. Okay. I forgot to introduce myself. I am Claire Carlisle. I am a local search expert at BrightLocal, and I have the pleasure of speaking to very clever, lovely people a lot of the time, which is lovely. Okay, let's go. Have we got our thinking hats on? Are we ready? These are hard. These are like serious questions, right? Okay, we have got Tyler. How do you differentiate 13 different location pages when the areas are pretty close to each other, 3 to 5 miles apart? And they all offer the same small group of services. I'm excited about this answer.
Yes. So this is my favorite question, because it really gets to the crux of why create a location page, right? Like, how do you merit creating a separate URL when everyone does the same thing? So in a situation like that, one, I'm going to assume that those are all actual locations with addresses. So they do, we do have the right to create another page and create that additional value. But I think what I would try to do in that situation is look for information, or look for the answers to questions that change depending on the location. So when you even think about your NAP information, that is going to be unique per location. But what about things like the actual content itself? You can describe what parking is like, if that's different between location. Things like reviews, for example, that's unique content that you can be adding to those location pages that are going to differ, assuming that people are leaving reviews for individual locations, and they should be. So I would say instead of hyper focusing too much on, hey, we're just like rewriting the same service descriptions over and over again, like that's okay if they all do the same thing, it's a brand, right? But look for those opportunities where the answer to your query or the answer to the question cannot be replicated for another page. It is innately unique to that location. Staff bios would be like another option there if you have like manager bio, things like that, where that has to be different, right? So look to enhance, like, yes, some of it is going to be duplicative value, or the information is going to be the same, but just look for those opportunities where the information cannot be the same across locations. And also seek to understand, okay, like, why is the business set up that way, right? Like they're probably serving different neighborhoods or something like that. So, there's a reason that they have those 13 locations. So even if they're in close proximity and there's some overlap, there is going to be unique value that they can be giving to customers.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Another thing that's useful sometimes is like driving directions or ways to get there. That's unique for every single place, isn't it, really? Even if they've got the same like services or the same types of products, then just adding that unique, get your staff, get an amazing quote from a staff member is a good way on that. Yeah. Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you. Now we have one from Brian. Nice answer, Emily. Elizabeth Rule was, what are the best ways to target multiple main cities in the same area? For example, Phoenix, Scottsdale, Tempe, how do you say that? And Chandler, Tempe and Chandler are all in the valley, but each have their own importance. So how do you target multiple main cities in the same area?
Yeah, another question that I love, because I lived in the Los Angeles area for a while. So if you've ever done SEO for a business in the LA area, you know that it is the exact same situation. And I think that's how Tempe is how it's said. So I'm gonna assume.
Brian is laughing at
but yeah, basically the answer to that is kind of in the question a little bit, right? So each of those are different audiences. So like, yeah, it's one larger geographic area, but the best way to actually merit or earn an audience with those customers through a location page is to have actual locations in those individual areas, and then create really hyper local pages that have that type of unique value that I kind of mentioned in the question before. But actually having locations there, like, that's how people in major metropolitan areas have to get services and products, right? Because driving, across LA is going to take you an hour and a half, right? Like, even if they're in close proximity and it's kind of one big city, that's not how people talk about it, right? Like, I'm either looking for again, I'm thinking LA because that's what I know, but like, I'm looking for a plumber in Burbank, or I'm looking for one in Pasadena, but probably not the other way around, depending on where I live. So I would say, yeah, like, actually, like, you deserve to have separate audiences there, just because it is a separate thing, even if they're in close proximity that way. And the best way to do it is to have actual offices, so you can have the business profile that then is linking to the unique location page and start getting those unique reviews for the individual locations and whatnot. Because I would hazard to guess the search volume for, Scottsdale versus Phoenix, like, those are completely different. They're the same geographic area, but they're different geographic areas from a search intent perspective.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant, thank you. And another question here. Okay, so we've got 11 votes on this one. What location-specific keywords work the best for location pages?
Ooh, okay, yeah. This is, first of all, no pressure, because 11 upvotes is a lot. And I hate to say it depends so early in the conversation, but I do think it's going to depend on how people are searching for that specific type of business, right? So if you're a major enterprise brand and you have thousands of locations and people know who you are, you probably, so for example, if I'm Dunkin' Donuts, I probably don't have to say coffee shop, coffee shop in Brooklyn or whatnot when I'm targeting keywords. Yeah. Whereas like a medium to a smaller business, it should be more top of funnel focused, right? Instead of that bottom of funnel branded search. So I would say do your keyword research and see like, how do people look for businesses like mine? And then also jump into Search Console and see, how do people currently find me? as well, and kind of cross-reference that information. And that could change based on the city that you're in, right? So if you're, again, in a large city like the Phoenix area, LA or New York or something like that, it's going to look different than it would for like a small town as well. If you're out, not in the middle of nowhere, but if you don't have like major cities around and whatnot. So I would say cross-reference keyword research itself, see how people look for businesses like yours, and then also see how the actual queries people are using to find you currently, and then customize that per location page and be okay with it being a bit different for each location.
Yeah, and seasonality as well. So it's not always the same thing, is it? So, what are rising searches, what sort of zeitgeisty effects will change what people want to find in that specific location. So it's not always set in stone. That's brilliant. Thank you. Oh, this is a nice one. How should location pages, thank you, Dennis. How should location pages interact with the services pages?
Yes. Okay. This is one of my favorite topics, but also least favorite at the same time, because it's kind of, when you find the answer, like, let me know, but I'll give you my take and experience. So in the past, I've worked with a lot of attorneys. So this is kind of where my answer is coming from, who have a ton of practice area or service topical pages, and then may have location pages with them. You have two options. One, you can have your location pages with all of your unique location specific information. Then you can have service pages that maybe target the state or the county that those locations are in, or the primary location. There will be circumstances though, like let's say you have locations in several major metropolitan areas where just having one service page that talks about, generally speaking, what you do with those location pages won't be enough. So there are scenarios where if your keyword research is telling you, hey, enough people are looking for this specific service in this specific area, where you could actually structure a location page almost as a microsite and say, hey, here's our Houston, here's our Houston branch, and here are some of the top things that we do there based on keyword research that we know people are looking for. So if your data is telling you, hey, it's worth creating these additional subpages to highlight how, again, using attorneys as an example, I know there are so many other things this could impact, but the like personal injury laws in Houston versus California, that's going to merit additional unique information. So I would say is there value? Is it different between locations and building out those unique service area pages or not? And then build them out gradually and start measuring as you go. And seeing, hey, does it work? And if it doesn't, try a few more maybe, but don't waste your time. But depending on the vertical that you're in, or depending on the industry that you're in, like you very well may want to build out some of those unique service pages underneath the actual location pages.
Yeah, I love that. So maybe choose the one that either has the most search volume or is the most valuable to you as a business, build out a test set, and then, do you get return? And then you could roll it out then, couldn't you, to see if that works?
Exactly.
Brilliant. We have got just a reminder to upvote your favorite questions in the Q&A box. And if you've got a question, pop it in the Q&A box rather than in the chat so we can see all of your great questions. Okay, we have got, this is what we've done is we've added some of our own questions into here because we find that we get a lot of questions at BrightLocal around over and over and over the same thing over and over again. So we pop those in there. So one has got 14 votes, which I think that's very good. It means it's resonating. Should I create a location page in a city where I don't have an address but serve my customers?
Okay, so that there's different terms for it, right? So when I speak to a location page, I'm assuming that you have an address there. So that's how my vocabulary will change. What I would describe, or what I would call what you're describing there, is like a geo page or a geographic.
I think GeoPage. I love GeoPage because
GeoPage.
You don't go down it's region, states, whatever rabbit hole. It's just a page about a specific location, a place where you don't have a bricks and mortar location.
Exactly.
GeoPage.
I would say if your business is like, these are tricky, right? Because I have tested this in the past for like HVAC and plumbing websites, and they're typically not successful, to be completely honest. I'm thinking specifically in like the San Diego area where there are a lot of smaller cities in a large metropolitan place. Building those out may not actually help you. Test it and see, do your keyword research, but typically having a location to tie to your location page is going to be more successful. That said, I think there are some industries where if you serve people in a greater area and it's not necessarily the same type of like storefront or like proximity based local service, like it could merit it. So again, like do your testing and whatnot. But generally speaking, my advice, like my default answer to that is you're probably not going to be super successful with those, or not as successful unless you have an address there. What might be worth it is if you have data that's saying people are looking for this here and we're not able to rank successfully with our geo page, consider opening a location there, like get an address and actually interface with people. Again, thinking like plumbing companies, things like that could be a better solution than just thinking building out many pages like that is going to garner the same type of organic traction. That's what my advice has been to clients in the past when that type of question has come up.
Yeah. And it also, just some stuff in the chat, this is also on a case-by-case basis. If it's not a competitive area, yes, you can rank number one organically with these pages. But it all depends on, you know, what Google is doing with its algorithm this week with regard to helpful content and whether it sees it as helpful content. So yeah, we're not saying it can't be done and it doesn't work, but on a case-by-case basis, you need to have a look and say, what is the competition and can I actually add value? Because you have to think about the user journey. If someone is making a search on one of these regional service-specific pages, you need to actually have a customer journey for them to go on.
Because you lose that opportunity to create unique value, right? Because it is not a separate location. Everything that you're going to be doing is essentially kind of reframing for a different neighborhood or suburb or whatnot that you've already done on your other location page. So you lose out on bringing in unique reviews or bringing in those staff bios and like unique FAQs and things like that. So it can be more challenging. So to your point, yeah, if the search volume is low and it's not competitive, then yeah, go for it and see if you can be successful that way. But the opportunity is generally smaller, I would say.
Yeah, being helpful, as Elizabeth said, and competitiveness is obviously all relative. So if you are better and do a better job than your competitors, then you might do better. But yes, so you need to look at the competitive landscape in order to understand whether you can do it. Okay, so we have got how much of the content, this is a good one. This is a good, not because I wrote it, but because I always think about this. How much of the content on a location page should be unique versus boilerplate?
Yes. Okay. So this is another, it's going to depend on how competitive things are, right? So typically, and my default answer without trying to create too much extra work for everyone is try to have the unique value outweigh the boilerplate. And when I say unique value, I'm talking about elements that are specific to that location. So if you're just rewriting your brand statement or kind of like rewriting the homepage, that's not really unique. Like it's necessary, right? But generally speaking, try to have more unique information that you're giving people than boilerplate. That may not be possible for every business. So at that, just look, at that point, look for all the opportunities that you can and pull them in. Like maybe it's half and half. Maybe more than half is a bit a boilerplate right now. But if that is the case, if more than half of your location page, again, I'm throwing out an arbitrary number based on my experience. But if more than half of it, if like the bulk of the content is boilerplate or it's kind of just rewritten content from the homepage, the most important thing that you can do is start creating opportunities to get unique content. So get more unique reviews for that location so you can bring them in, start creating FAQs that are talking about how do I get to your location from, the nearest parking structure or from public transportation and things like that. And have that be like the next step or start testing unique offers and coupons, things like that. Because if the bulk of the content is boilerplate, then you're probably, and it's a competitive area, like you're just not going to give your customers the value that they're looking for really. And you're also not going to be demonstrating like why this page deserves to rank to a search engine either, in my opinion. So that's kind of my default answer. But again, like it's going to be very relative to what other businesses are doing in the area as well.
For sure, and it's another great area to test, isn't it? It's because if you've got like 200 pages that are pretty boilerplate, then choose the one that's most important to you, build out unique content, see how that performs, and then secure the budget to do that on the rest of them. So
Yeah.
That's a nice one. Still lots of questions coming in, so keep going. Goodness me, 51. From Rick, what kind of backlinking? No, it's not about that. What kind of backlinking and citation strategy do you recommend for location pages?
Ooh, okay. So backlinks, I do not claim to be the most well-versed in backlinks, proactive backlink building. What my default strategy is, because it is, I think, the most useful to humans, is going to be have your unique locations, have your directory profiles that people use, the ones like Google Business Profile, Yelp, those types of ones, specific industry specific ones as well, depending on what industry you're in. Have those linking to your location page, because that's how you're going to get more customers to the page, right? They're going to be, oh, we found your Yelp, we found your Google Business Profile, we're clicking through their website, and now I have all this unique information. So I wouldn't think about it necessarily as a, hey, how do we generate more backlinks for this specific page to get it ranking in the 10 blue links, but rather, where are my customers going to find businesses like mine? And how can I get this location page in front of them there? And a lot of that is going to be utilizing the most prominent directory listings and profiles and stuff. So that's what I would say is the best offsite strategy, especially when you're working with many locations. Like at an enterprise level, that is scalable. Whereas proactive, like doing link outreach and whatnot, is not going to be scalable for location pages. If you are a small business and you have like 3 locations, something like that, in distinct different areas, and you're doing a lot of community events and whatnot, okay, that's one way where you can be getting those local types of backlinks. You can be out shaking hands and getting mentioned, doing charity drives, having local news talking about you. That isn't scalable for large businesses either. So I think the easiest way to do it is, don't view it as a, how do I get high authority links, but rather, how do I get this page in front of where I know people are looking for me?
Yeah, and the much disregarded tactic of internal linking. So actually linking to your location pages from relevant points in your site is just like, so many people don't do it. So that works really well. Just want to say a big thank you to Elizabeth Rawle and Jason and some other people in the chat that are really doing well fielding questions and answers. So thank you team, doing such a good job. Thank you very much. Another classic but good question. Should I link to location? Oh, where's that one gone? There's so many upvotes. It's just been pipped to the top. What are the oh my gosh, another one. Where's that gone? Should I link to location pages or the site homepage from Google Business Profile?
Ooh, okay, yeah. So a couple of years ago, Joy Hawkins of Sterling Sky did a study that showed that sometimes linking to the homepage can actually improve your rankings because it tends to carry more authority. So there is merit to that strategy, and I say test it. After that presentation, I think it was in like 2019. I tried to replicate it with a few brands and was not able to, and found that the location pages actually served a lot of businesses better. So my default tends to be, so there's data for both, right? My default tends to be linked to the location page, because that's where, ostensibly, that's where you should be creating all of that value that is relevant to customers in that specific location. So I think if, without diving in and doing a ton of testing, I would say link to the location page. And if you have evidence that points to linking to the homepage, okay, do that. But really, if you find yourself linking to the homepage every time, then what is the value of the location page at that point? Like, at what point do you want to direct people to the location page?
I think single location will often just link to the homepage, because they've got like a consistent footprint in terms of their name, address, phone number is on the footer, so that's nice and easy. And sometimes a good sort of edge case of that would be a dentist with like 2 offices that are very close to each other, and they might decide to link to the homepage because they can include everything over the entire website. So that would be the sort of use case, isn't it? But like more than a few, you're going to want to be going through to really good location pages.
Yeah.
What is the best way to lay out the service page in a way that flows and converts leads to paying customers? Oh my gosh, this is a big ask. Emily, hit us with the answer.
Service page that's going to convert customers. So I'm trying to tie this back to like a specific example that I have worked on in the past. But I'm going to think in terms of location pages. Okay. So like if I'm like a plumbing company or something like that, and people are looking for a service in a specific area, typically what I recommend doing is, one, know your customer and know how they are searching for you. Are the majority of people coming to you from branded, like high intent type of keywords, or are they searching for plumber near me and things like that? And then kind of line up the conversion funnel and see, like, do we have that like, top of funnel, middle, bottom of funnel content everywhere on the page, and then prioritize the one that most closely matches how people are currently finding you. So if you have a lot of branded searches coming in and that tends to be how people convert, then have your, oh gosh, I'm blanking on what they're called, but basically the like reasons people should hire you, like put that at the top and like make it very, very easy for people to contact you immediately. On the flip side, if people are coming in with more like plumber near me type of terms, like that, more mid-funnel things, and they're still making a decision, highlight your services, because and be like, hey, here are the problems we can solve for you, that type of thing. So I would say test it, yes, but structure it to accommodate the way that people are searching for you the most. If you have a general idea of what did people search last before they called me, or what tends to get the highest amount of clicks to the website. It's not maybe not the most scientific way of doing it, right? Like, I don't think there's a perfect answer here, and I'm by no means a UX expert, but that would be how I would think about this. Is I would try to accommodate the way that people are looking for me, and then prioritize that type of content at the top.
Yeah, you're an expert in everything. Just
say it with confidence,
Just say it. Yeah, definitely do all the things that Emily said, because that was very clever. What do we got? What are the top things to avoid when making a location page?
Yeah, so one of the things, and the reason I even started thinking a lot about location pages, is because I saw very often the habit was, so we have our location page is basically a different address in the footer, a different map because it's a different location. But other than that, it's kind of just a rewrite of the homepage, right? Like the content is unique in the sense that we have spent the time rewriting it, but we're saying the same thing with different words. And if the bulk of your content is that, you've kind of wasted some time because you're not giving any unique value. So I would say the thing to really avoid is diluting the page with information that people can find elsewhere. Like, yes, talk about your services, but that shouldn't be the only thing that you're talking about. There has to be a reason. Like, you actually have to deserve, that location has to deserve its own page, right? And if you're just rewriting the homepage or just rewriting a description of your services and adding a different address, like, it probably doesn't. So I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen. Yes, those pages can perform in local competition areas, but that was one of the initial things that kind of sparked my interest in talking about location pages, is seeing so much like technically unique content, but is it actually providing unique value to users? So I'd say that's the biggest thing to avoid, is diluting the impact of the page just by rewriting what people could get elsewhere.
My favorite is when people embed a Google map, but they embed a Google map that takes them to their location rather than to their named branded location, especially when they share that location with a competitor and everyone gets listed in the Google map, which is essentially pushing them back up the funnel. It's just like, no, link to your location, your business, your actual business location. I looked at that the other day. I was like, oh my gosh, there's 3 people that offer the same thing and you've just linked to their address.
Which at that point, you're probably already being filtered in maps anyway, if you have so many competing businesses in one area. So like, do yourself the favor, like if people got to your location page, send them back to Google for the the correct place.
Josie, we like this. We've got some good ones, I hope. Can you provide a website example that does location pages really well?
Yes. So I compiled a bunch of examples, and they're all kind of for different reasons. So I'm not going to pick one location page where I'm like, they're doing everything and it's all perfect, but I do have a list of businesses that do specific things that I find really interesting. So I'll just run through them. Is that okay? Hopefully this isn't too boring for anyone.
No, this is what people, they want. People, everyone, me, we all want to say, you know, don't say you should do this, you should do this. Say these people are doing reviews really well. These, you know, that's what people want, I think. So please.
Yeah. So I'll go through my list. So speaking of reviews, PetSmart does something really interesting with theirs, where they have their reviews broken out by their offering. So like grooming services have their own set of reviews, and then, you know, training or daycare or whatever it might be, and they have that broken out by location on their location pages, which I think is really cool. So that's kind of something to think about if that's an opportunity for you. So I would take a look at their locations. Dunkin' Donuts, and, you know, not because I'm a loyal customer, but Dunkin' Donuts does a really good job of displaying their store information, like their NAP and hours. They highlight the day that it is for the hours in a way that's just really clear. It's very easy to see, do they accept gift cards at this location, and like their location attributes for them specifically. For unique photographs, an example of a brand that does this is Sprinkles Cupcakes. They are a very like West Coast and East Coast cupcakery in the US. But one thing that I like that they do is they have unique storefront images on their location pages. And some of their locations are in prominent areas like the Grove in Los Angeles, where people would recognize it. So that's really good image optimization there. They also have pretty good paragraph form content and amenities on theirs. Another example is going to be Rooterman. It's a plumbing company. They have unique specials and coupons per location, which I think is really cool. Again, like if I remember properly, their website is nothing to write home about necessarily from like a modern, you know, high-tech design element or anything like that, but having that unique value, I think, is really, really nifty and interesting. And then also Home Depot is a good example of building out unique content at scale. So they have like products trending in your neighborhood. They also have a calendar of events for workshops coming up, things like that, where it's like, okay, that's a really creative way to build unique value per location. And then the last one I'm going to mention, which is an overall example, so I'll give you one, but I can't take credit for it. This is an example that Amanda Jordan gave in her MozCon talk this year, which was really cool, is 1 hour heating and air conditioning. So they're a really good example of a SMB that does a good job creating unique location pages that don't rely heavily on paragraph form content. They're bringing in a ton of really cool elements. So I would say check out them as well. I know that was just a huge list.
That's brilliant. With the Amanda example, that's one that she told me once, and that's the one that for me is like when she talks about unique value proposition and trying to explain to someone, well, what is your unique value proposition? I think that they embed it because it's just like we respond within this time frame or whatever it is. So it's a really, really good example. That one, I use that in my location page course. So thank you to Amanda and to you for always like sharing such epic content that we can like. You need to go and see examples. So that's awesome. Thank you. Here's one. Just saying, we're halfway through, and so keep coming with the questions, because personally I think this is gold. And thank you, Emily, for being so clever. Do you have any top tips for adding schema to my location pages?
Yeah, so I do love talking about schema because I think it's a great way to I don't know, it's a good way to optimize your business as an entity, and so much of it is kind of just done automatically in Yoast if you're like, oh, I'll just select this one and see what happens. But if you're wanting to like my top tip for location pages specifically, or small businesses in general, or local businesses, is be as specific as possible. So you can have your local business schema if you are a local business. However, it is so much better to actually choose the type of local business that you are. I was looking recently, and you'll often see, you know, restaurants just being listed as restaurant opposed to a pub or an Irish restaurant. Like, get really specific, because that type of information can help, or, you know, like cafe or whatever it might be. That type of information can help Google understand for what searches you may be relevant and understand your business as an entity better. So be as specific as possible, and then also leverage as many opportunities as possible. So if you have frequently asked questions on your location pages, add FAQ schema. If you don't have frequently asked questions, create them and then add FAQ schema, things like that. So think beyond just, flipping the switch and being like, we marked up our address and our location information with local business schema, and we use the most specific type, but instead, like, use as many opportunities as possible, and then be as specific as you can.
Do you have a top tip for best way for sort of medium-sized business to go about generating their schema?
Ooh, to go about generating it. So when I have worked on medium-sized businesses, typically, I'm going to preface this by saying my local SEO experience comes from companies where I was working on internal custom CMS platforms. So it may not be the most applicable, but in the past, I have simply done it myself with a type of generator, and then either injected that through like a plugin or something, or then just done it through Tag Manager or something like that. So I don't know if that's actually the best answer in this situation, but that's how I would do it.
Yeah, and Casey, there's lots of, and again, I don't mean to talk about my course again, but I'll talk about my course again. I do give like 4 or 5 different ways to generate schema, using the generator. I can't remember the name of there's a Chrome plugin, which is really good. And you can actually look at other people's schema using that. It's called Schema Builder. And then you've got Schema App. And then there's lots of different things. But Schema App I look at Schema App and I'm like, I need to understand this a bit more. So I think it needs a bit more. You need to dive in a little bit hardcore, I think, with Schema App, which is great. But you're just using a builder is also really great.
Yeah, typically, I'll be totally honest, and most of the time, the point in the optimization process when I get to schema, like I'm doing it myself. It's going to be scrappy most of the time. Tech resources are elsewhere. Yeah. So yeah, using like a generator or a builder like that, like use whatever suits your purposes best. Yeah. There are a lot of good resources.
There's a Merkle one. There's
yes.
There is information out there on places you can go. We've got a question from Rick Simnet, who is asking, what kind of content strategy do you recommend for location pages?
Okay, content strategy. So yeah, I guess I'm going to make some assumptions as to the intent behind the question, in that I'm assuming content strategy isn't referring to like recurring content necessarily, but rather how do we build content for location pages that is relevant to people. But I would say in that situation, identify what your customers need the most. So that may not, and don't, when you're thinking about content strategy, don't assume that means you're actually writing content. That could be things like value propositions or coupons or specials or product information. So I would say understand your audience as much as possible and then prioritize that. If you don't need 300 words of content describing how, you're the best to unclog toilets or whatever, or fix ACs and, that kind of a thing, or why we provide the best cupcakes, things like that. Yeah. Then don't do that. Like focus on exactly like what are people looking for when they land on this location page, and then accommodate that with your content as much as possible, and do not limit yourself to just content that you are writing. Yes, text-based content is valuable and important, but those other page elements are going to be probably what convinces people to choose you over a competitor. So keep that in mind when you're creating a content strategy.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And just thinking, again, coming back to sort of zeitgeist and changing terms, is that like curbside pickup and all those other like massive volume phrases that emerged during COVID, if you're offering, I don't know, in-store hours for something or curbside, all these new terms that people are using, don't forget to go back in and make sure you've got those pages, in your title tag, if that's what you're trying to rank, but definitely on the page. We've got another one here. Just seeing some questions. Say, for example, there's one from Justin just gone into the chat. Justin, don't forget to pop it in the Q&A box. And then if it gets some upvotes, we'll get around to dealing with it, which will be super. How should I structure the URLs of my location pages?
Ooh, okay. This is one of the most common questions that I have received regarding regarding location pages in general is like, okay, what's the URL structure look like? And I think this is going to depend on how you are building your location pages. If you are a medium or a small to medium sized business and you have enough locations that you are doing it yourself on like WordPress or something like that, I tend to very much favor a subfolder structure. So, slash location is going to be a good one. Especially if you're thinking, hey, I may add some sub services to these pages. So /Houston /service, if you're thinking in those terms. That said, if you are using a software or a product that is generating these, helping like at an enterprise level, right? You're using something like a location builder. There are many of them out there. Then it is very likely that you may end up with a subdomain structure instead. So locations. I think that some builders actually, that's a requirement. And those can be very successful, but I would say you have to have a brand that is big enough to actually merit a subdomain structure like that. Yeah. So I tend to favor subfolder the majority of the time. But if you're using a builder, that's going to help kind of automate a lot of the content itself, or a lot of the, building those page elements, then you may have to actually use a subdomain instead, because that's living on a completely different CMS.
Cool. So if you're a small to medium-sized business and your developer is suggesting, because all the cool kids have got their location pages on the subdomain, don't do it.
If you're a small business, don't look at something like Chipotle and be like, oh, I should also be doing it exactly like this because I think theirs is in a subdomain. So just be aware and don't overcomplicate it as well. Like if you are using a subdomain and it's fine, like it can be fine. Like you don't have to like migrate.
Don't do it to start off with. You can avoid it. How do I know if it's worth creating a location page? Hang on. I.e. suburbs without much search volume, do they deserve their own location? So it's actually a geo page or whatever we're going to call it question. So how do I know if it's worth creating one?
Yeah, I think this kind of calls back to what we talked about briefly earlier, or at least the answer will be kind of similar, which is, are people looking there and is it highly competitive? So if there are other businesses with actual locations in that area who are already ranking, you're probably not going to displace them with a service area page or like a geo page or something like that. But if the volume exists, like if there's enough interest, even if tools aren't picking up on the search volume, but you get customers from that location occasionally, then it may be worth creating, right? So test it and see. But I would say it's worth it when you find that sweet spot of people need this, but it's also not so high volume or so competitive that everyone else, that there's no way it can be successful. So that is going to be a case by case basis. It can be done, but I think in my experience, like very often those end up going live and then not generating a ton of traffic because there just isn't going to be enough people looking for that specific region.
Wicked. I'm looking at the next question from Mark Fortune, and best practices for SEO for a city where you've not got a physical location and you don't serve them in the service area.
So I would say don't go for it. Don't do it. That's gonna be a no. I wouldn't do that one. Yeah. It isn't going to work. I mean, you can do it if you're strictly looking for like a deliverable, like, hey, I built the page and that's the most important thing, but it's not going to, well, I guess I would be curious as to what you want it to accomplish.
What's the use case scenario?
What is the use case? And if the use case has anything to do with getting visibility, it will not be successful.
Okay. Is it, you sort of covered this, but, should we do it anyway? You can be really quick if there's nothing to add. Is it worth creating unique service pages that live under each location page?
Yeah, so the short answer would be yes, sometimes, right? Like if the location has like different laws or the service is somehow different in that location, absolutely consider doing that. The other option would be if there's enough search volume to merit that and you can't, ostensibly you cannot rank for it by talking about it or just mentioning it on the location page itself. Like just mentioning, hey, we provide this service may not be enough. So in that situation, like if you think you can generate enough value for your customers on a service area page, like, yeah, build it out underneath, test it as you go, that type of thing. But yeah, that's pretty much the same answer that I said earlier, I think.
Yeah, that's cool. Thank you. We've only got 15 minutes to go. So if you are poking around in questions and answers, please upvote your favorite question so we can get them to the top. Another question, what are the best ways to add trust and social proof on my location pages? And another thing I'll come back to, just because I saw some stuff in the chat about this, people saying, do the reviews need to be location specific? And if so, where do I get them from?
Yeah, okay. So I think a lot of, okay, so I'll answer the last part of the question first. But I think it's always good to include reviews for that specific location. Otherwise, you have that scenario of it's boilerplate content, right? If we're posting it everywhere. It also gives people a more realistic understanding of what to expect at that location in the same way that like a unique photo would. So yes, include reviews for the location that the page is about. And I think for most businesses, the best place to get those reviews is going to be from their like listings and whatnot, which is okay. Like Google has said, yes, like add the reviews to your website. Don't mark them up. Don't mark them up with schema or anything, but bring in those reviews. That's where people are talking about you the most. So, you know, it's okay to aggregate your reviews and pull those into the page. Be open and honest about it. Don't only, you know, pick the good ones and stuff, but like bring in your reviews so people can view them there. So yeah, have them be unique to the location if you can. If you don't have unique reviews per location, that should be what you do first, is actually go out and ask people, hey, can you please review us? Be a little bit more proactive there. And then as far as the social proof is concerned, reviews are a huge piece of that, right? But also making sure that you are putting, creating an actual like understanding of like the persona behind what people are saying. Like your testimonials need to come from actual people, like have, you know, have a human that they can associate it with instead of just like a, hey, so-and-so is great, that kind of a thing. So keep it as unique as possible. I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything there as well. But yeah, I bring in reviews from your profiles where real people are talking about you, and then make it very easy for your customers to identify those as actual customers, so they can see that human element.
Yeah, for sure. What have we got here? We have got from Nikki. I have a client with only one location, but it ranks pretty low after you get out of about a 3-mile radius of their practice. Can location pages help them rank in some of these outlying areas, even if they don't have locations in those areas? Yeah,
this is a common problem. So what I would recommend first is if you don't have locations there. So there are two paths, right? Because building out location pages without a location, again, it's probably just not going to be the best way to actually get visibility. So what you could do, two other options that I think would have the potential to be more successful, would be invest more in establishing the one location as an authority, whether that be going for more top of funnel keywords, answering people's questions, how-tos, things like that, like really leaning into the expertise and like the EAT element of why this business and the people who are doing the work are the best at what they do. And that's one option to help hopefully improve your rankings that way. Another option would be if you have pretty good visibility in this very small area, and you have the option of actually opening locations in surrounding areas and think that that might be a good business move, that's another way to do it as well. Like I've worked with businesses that do that and it is successful. And sometimes that conversation starts as an SEO play. Like, hey, from an organic perspective, like you have good authority here, you're not going to rank over there unless you actually exist there. So if that's an option, like expand. But you can either expand the website as is to expand your expertise and hopefully get a little bit more traction in that major area, or actually look at expanding the business itself can be another way. But creating those initial service pages, like, yeah, you can test it, but generally speaking, if it's at all competitive, which it sounds like it is, it's probably not going to be a win in the long run.
Wicked, thank you. From Rainbow York, does embedding a Google map help location pages?
I wouldn't think from like a ranking perspective necessarily. Like I don't think of that as being like I think of it as a necessary element for users, right? Because a lot of the time people are landing on that page because they want to know how to get to you, or they've been clicking around and now they're deciding I want to use this business, and they're going to look up directions. So yeah, absolutely include a map. Whether or not it has to be a Google map embed, there are different ways you can do it. Sometimes it'll just be like a cool little graphic or image or a map embed that has been designed to be a bit more branded, things like that. But yes, please do include maps on your location pages. It's not going to be the thing that takes you from page 2 to page 1 necessarily, but it is going to be something that is incredibly useful to your customers, and not having it will damage their experience, in my opinion. Also, like, you should be, like, directions and your NAP info and stuff is an integral part of your unique value as a location. So always include those things.
Do you think that it helps Google establish links between your different parts of you as an entity by the fact that you've embedded a map for your own location from your own website? I'm just
Yeah, I think that Google could figure that out without the embed, honestly. And I can't think of many businesses that I've worked on where that didn't exist. So it's kind of hard for me to say, like, I've tested it. But yes, right. Like, as an entity, of course, like, you link to your social media, and like, that's part of you as an entity too. Like, your reviews, like, that's part of you as an entity. So yeah, I think that could fall under the umbrella of entity optimization for sure. And
it makes sense. What would Google expect to see? Well, Google would expect to see you, like, naming the parts of that on there.
Yeah, and just make sure you're linking to your location and not like the generic area as well. Like, so people can get directions to you specifically, that type of a thing.
I am going to skip over one of those questions because I feel like we've answered that one already. This is a nice one from Roger. What is the best way to internally link location pages? Should it only be vertically, or should you link between pages in the same area? Also, how should they be linked to and from service pages?
Okay, yes, I understand. I'm going to answer this twice because it's going to be very different answers. Well, the answers, it depends, but it's going to be different for enterprise and then medium-sized multi-location. So medium-sized multi-location, you could integrate more organically into your service pages. Like, hey, we do this service in these particular areas, not in a spammy way. Don't just like include a ton of links, like you understand, but like in a way that is natural. If that, like, you can bake that and fold it into your content, absolutely do that. Like, that makes sense to me as a user and as an SEO. I think as well, a lot of businesses, again, don't go overboard. This is not something you want to do if you have like hundreds of locations, but including them in your navigation, like those types of elements, navigational elements, are also going to create really good internal links. If you have a subfolder structure, including breadcrumbs, things like that, like, that's how you're creating internal links across the site. So your service pages, if you have like one service page and don't have sub-service pages under your location pages, those can interact quite nicely in a way that is organic. Again, if you have many locations, it will not. so don't. If you are a large enterprise, so like the second answer is, if you are a large enterprise, it will almost exclusively be navigational, right? Because then you might have regional pages where it's like, hey, here are all of our locations in California, and it's more navigational and structural that way. And that's where your internal linking is going to happen. And it's more likely that you would have find a location that pushes the user into that. You're not going to have a drop down with everything, right? It's going to push the user into this funnel where they are now finding the location, and that's generating internal links, opposed to filling the footer with 1,000 Emily's coffee shop Atlanta, Emily's coffee shop here. Like, don't do that. That type of a thing. So do what makes the most sense from a user journey perspective, and like how your business actually functions is what I would say.
Yes, lovely, thank you. I'm going down, I'm looking at a question. We've only got 5 minutes left, so we cover a few more, so keep upvoting the stuff in there. This is any advice for a service business which is operating from a home address? So I guess that's the address that they've used to verify the listing, but it's 70 miles away from the service area. This is not unusual in our rural state, although this example is the furthest distance I've run into. It's tough to rank. Yes.
It is tough to rank. It is tough to rank.
You need to move house. Or get an office. Why don't you go and get an office somewhere that is your most important area, and maybe you could just, you could share it with somebody else. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. No. That is a tough one. And yes, getting an address really is the best solution. I know it's not always possible though, like in rural areas and stuff. Hopefully because it's going to struggle to rank. Like Google still knows the address and knows that you're not there. So I don't want to necessarily give false hope that perhaps does not exist. But in that situation, you can still optimize your website, and assuming it's one location, then the whole website itself is your location page, right? Mm-hmm. So same principles. So, you can do everything right, but just know that like it is going to be really challenging, because I can almost guarantee that there is someone closer who does the same thing, who actually does have an address. So the only way I see it being successful long-term is if the competition is very low. Because unfortunately, and I think COVID showed us this a lot, where certain types of services, for example, attorneys started working from home more and not having addresses. Google did not pick up on that very quickly as being like a realistic thing. And I don't think that Google is totally sophisticated enough. I don't know. I hesitate to say it like that exactly, but I don't think Google is necessarily kind to businesses that function that way. So it is going to be challenging. So really the best option is get yourself an office if you can.
Get an office or move house and be verified in the place that is the most useful place. But yeah. Sorry, Carrie, that's not good news, but hopefully it's useful news.
It's a tough one. You have my sympathy for sure, because those are challenging situations.
And like she's saying, if it's a geographic area where people are like really, really spread out, it's a thing, isn't it? It's just going to be tricky. I'm just running down. I think we've probably got time for about another 2. Trying to find something that hasn't been asked. Ooh, I feel like we've covered that. Okay, so Barry, location pages. If you've got a single location restaurant, do you have any examples?
Okay. So if it's just one location, then we're really talking the website as a whole, right? In that situation, I mean, it's less of a location page conversation as it is a how are you building out your website content? I will say one thing that I noticed with restaurants a bit, because I did used to work at a company that focused a lot in hospitality, is on your Google profile and also your website itself, make your menu like super clear, because people search for specific food items and that type of stuff is gonna, like, it doesn't seem like, oh, vegan food near me is like part of your location page strategy, but it should be. So like the options and stuff, like make sure that everything is very easy for Google to crawl and index, because I see a lot of websites including like images of their menus and things like that. So if you're just working with one location that way, just follow all of the same best practices for a location page, but like, again, treat your whole website like the location page.
And you can have a location page which is just called like Find Us or something, which is
exactly
your primary nav, and that's what's got your map. But the rest of the website is doing all of your selling for you. You've only got one location, so don't worry about having to fill that one, because you're probably just going to link to your homepage anyway.
Sorry, I just interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, sorry. Yes, go.
The location page where that location information is going to live, like your address, like the very basic location stuff, is going to live on your contact us page. So if you have like a form for people to, toss you queries about like parties and events or like reservations, whatever it might be, that'll be like, have a contact us page, or get in touch, that kind of a thing. Where that would live, and all of the other good, like really rich information that people are looking for is going to be elsewhere on your site.
Do you know what? We're out of time. That's it. There's so many questions. There's still a million questions in there. We're not going to go on forever, because we could go on forever, because you have got super duper advice for everyone. So thank you a million for that. So this is recorded. It's going to be available from tomorrow. I just want to say thank you also to absolutely everyone in the chat that has had brilliant questions and brilliant answering of questions. There is your Moz post on Moz about location pages. BrightLocal, we've got a course on location pages. There's going to be a new course coming soon, which covers product service pages and other content for local SEO. So hopefully we've got you covered with lots of places where you can go and find out more information. So apart from a big thank you to you, I just need to say to everybody, next webinar, keep your eyes peeled for an email that will go out in the next couple of weeks with schedules and information about all of those things. So all that remains to be done is to say a huge thank you to Emily for basically just being a fountain of knowledge and being brilliant. And thank you to everyone in the chat. And hopefully we will see you at another search clinic soon.